Well, hello there, and good evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you may be on our spaceship Earth. This is your buddy Dave over MarsX3D, and we're ready for another live hang. Number 7, I believe, is this one, and have some pretty cool stuff to look at tonight. We'll maybe dive into the images in a little while when more people show up. I'm hoping more people are late so we can go ahead and get those Twizzlers I've been promising for everybody. But it's been a real interesting week, a very, very busy week for me, including medical things and other business things, and finding hours and minutes to cram into what I really want to do, which is search for anomalies full time. And ultravirus, is that virus or virus? How are you doing, my friend? Thank you for stopping by. And we have Alan from Mars, the second Genesis. Okay, I'm going to get these dentures fixed one of these days. But yeah, Mars, the second Genesis. And Alan is rapidly coming along, has a wonderful X3D channel. And Don is in too. Hey, my friend, good to see you. Welcome aboard. And he's finding out that for many of us who are into X3D, that 3D is very revealing. You see a lot more in 3D than you do in 2D, because you know what your mind does? It unconsciously maps the space and includes details and adds resolution and gives you a lot more information than you get from a 2D image. So finding anomalies can be challenging. I spent a long time, years. Of course, I did stereo right from the beginning, but people weren't interested in it at all. And as a budding anomalist, the stuff I was finding were clearly anomalies to my eyes, which were trained for it. But to the average person, they're just scratching their head and go, huh? What? Them are just rocks. Let's see who we got here. Oh, Crazy A showed up. How you doing? And Darren's in the house. Ah, yes. It's all good. It's all good. And who else we got? AC Stinnett Country Music. Yeehaw, brother. And Pat Morris has made it through the door. Martin made it on time this week. You don't have to put a quarter in the can by the door, Martin. That's a first for you, I believe. So good for you. Alfie Joe Bob has shown up, and we're getting all the usual suspects. You know, I had a question from a brand new viewer today, saying, well, why don't you use a cursor and point out the things that you're talking about? Well, it's not, my videos are not live presentations. And in order to view a cursor in 3D means that I would have to produce the video live in 3D with special preparation. It's way above my pay grade. And there isn't software that can handle it. And what I do instead, as many of you already know, is that I highlight things. I color them purple, or I circle them with various colored gun sights, or I put a box, a dashed line around them, or I literally point them out with an arrow. So if you can't see what I'm talking about, well, you just got to pay a little closer attention to how I'm showing it to you. I love what Chris Maroney does. And he does stuff on the fly because he's broadcasting his screen through OBS. So you can see his cursor, and there's no break because it's 2D. But if I do it in 3D, then a cursor appearing on only one side of the image is going to bust up your X3D viewing and be really, really irritating. You're just going to have to trust me that I know what I'm doing on the 3D end as far as that goes. Ricardo, ¿cómo está mi amigo? ¿Qué tal? Nice to see you. And Ramona made it tonight. And golly, we got quite a crew showing up. The markers are not red, yeah. It's not a good color to use for a colorblind guy. And you know what? That's a really good point. Every now and then, Ricardo, I will use a red target to indicate an anomaly. You'll have to forgive my voice tonight. I was under anesthesia for quite some time this afternoon, having a medical procedure. I'm fine. Everything's fine, but my voice is a little hoarse from that. But yeah, very good point. A red marker, if you happen to be colorblind, is not very useful. I think green is okay. Maybe you can tell me, Ricardo, is green a color that you can see easily enough? Normally I use yellow, but when there are 3, 4, or 5 different markers in an image, I try to vary the color so it doesn't just everything look the same. You know what I mean? Anyway, spent, I had so many anomalies lined up, and I ended up getting real busy with a pan by Neil Spence, and actually both pans by Neil Spence, I believe. And they're huge. And what Neil does, bless his heart sometimes, is he doesn't put them up on macro, giga macro. He puts them up on Flickr. And so you will see a pan that's 10 feet long and a 1/4 inch tall. And you can't put markers on it, and you can't zero in on it. So some of the images this week are going to have links just to his Flickr pan. I'm going to have a talk to Neil about that. I'm thinking a little corporate discipline is in order, don't you? Purple, yellow, green, cyan. All good for Mars images. Great, Ricardo. Thank you very much for that feedback. And I will remember that and incorporate those colors into the mix so that they don't turn invisible on you. And I think we have enough people present here to maybe dive in to one of our images. And this is just a small one. It's not real fancy, but it is anomalous. And I call it 2 round. Okay, look right in the foreground there, just to the right of the copyright logo, the planet Mars. And look at that. Is that not an architectural element? I mean, come on. Oh yeah, Martin. The room I'm broadcasting from tonight is my Renaissance laboratory, and complete with old-timey telescope and a boiling beaker and candlelight and other good stuff. I really feel at home there. And anyway, look at that thing on the lower left. That is incredibly round, incredibly even. And don't you just want to go push aside the sand and have a look at it? What's underneath the sand? But then what gets me, look at the top almost center. What the heck is that? It's a perfectly symmetrical, almost a nose cone. What might be called, depending on how long it is, an ogive pattern. That's spelled O-G-I-V-E, ogive. So we have an ogive nose cone type of structure that might be part of a building, and it's got 2 eye holes in it. And a case can be made for everything else in the image. Renee, how are you? Welcome aboard. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the helicopter is going to be postponed. And you're right. If it does go, they'll not say anything about it for a while, and maybe nothing at all. Well, one thing for sure, they're only going to get one chance at the helicopter. And if it takes off and doesn't fly or flops over upside down in the sand, I mean, that's it, man. Game over. And I know there's a lot of puckering going on at NASA over the helicopter. And let me bring our friend Architectural Elements back here. Anyway, I love the candles and the chandelier and the library. And let me move my head. There you can see the beaker in the background. It's even smoking a little bit. If you didn't know, I belong in the Renaissance. I was born a couple centuries too late. And my early studies at the conservatory were in Renaissance and Baroque music, and performed in a chamber ensemble, and did a lot of concerts, a lot of playing, and spent many years actually doing that. And have a real love for the Renaissance music, the Renaissance art forms, the great masters in painting and in science. So back to our architectural piece here, down there in the left corner. That beautifully round little topstone, I guess. Is that, what would you call it? And it's way too symmetrical, isn't it, Darren, to call that natural? And then that thing up in the near the center, at the top, that nose cone shaped stone or metal or whatever it might be. That is very, very strange. And I guess you already know, starting a week or two ago, that you guys who come to the live hang are special. You get to see all the images I worked on this week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and even today at 5 in the morning, getting these ready. And then I have to voice them tomorrow. And Thursday I do the intro and assembling the video and lay in the music and do all that technical stuff so it's ready to go Friday morning. But you guys get the sneak peek in 3D here at the live hang. So I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, I know, Renee, that you were about 11 minutes late. Now I'm a little disappointed, but I understand you're in a different time zone and you have a life as well. But do be sure to put that quarter in the can over by the door. Because I'm thinking before we hit Easter, that can's going to be full, and it's Twizzlers for the house. Or Cadbury cream eggs. We'll see. Twizzlers go longer and you can get more of them for less money, and I'm a cheap guy anyway, so. Anyway, yeah, Ramona, I'm glad you're here. And you know, let me check this next one. I'm starting out with some little things, as you can tell. And look at the opening on this. Right in the middle. Put on your X3D eyeballs. And that is just as perfectly square. And it's an entrance to something. It's hollow. An equilateral triangle on the side facing us with markings. It looks like there's something on the inside, but I can't really tell what it is. And look at that great big ball on the right edge. That thing's almost perfectly spherical. Now, it could be just a stone. In fact, it probably is. But you know, back in the Midwest where I grew up. And yeah, Gracie, I agree. Twizzlers are awesome. When I was a little kid, I'd go to swim classes in the summer, and down on the edge of the Mississippi was a little concession stand, and you could get a big frosty root beer full of crushed ice for 15 cents. And for 2 cents more, you could get a strawberry Twizzler. And of course, you bite the ends off the Twizzler and use it as a straw and drink your root beer. And then by the time you're done, that Twizzler is hard rubber, and it takes forever to chew it up. So you get a lot of happy for 17 cents. Of course, that's back in the 1950s. They don't have stuff like that anymore, do they? Yeah, it's interesting, Ricardo. No, I haven't checked out the Bard Code channel. I'll have to look that up. Oh, and what size? Well, ultravirus, if that's what it is. I don't know if it's virus or virus, like for hires. When you look at the context image, which I always include before we go to a detail view, you can get an idea of the distance and the size. Right offhand, I'd say that was 2 to 3 feet square, that opening. And yes, Darren, that is an opening because it goes inside. You can see, if you do your X3D, you can see that whatever it is that's just barely lit up on the inside is on the inside. It's not on the surface. So that's pretty good. Anyway, that as I was saying before about that big ball on the right side, where I grew up in Iowa, there were a lot of creeks and rivers and all that. And you get stones that get rolled around in the creeks, and they get pretty round. They get really circular, or they might even get egg-shaped, and some of them get round. Okay, Ultra, I will call you Ultra, like Ultraman. So that's pretty interesting collections of things from Percy Sol 4. And as a matter of fact, it does seem that eventually we are getting some pretty clear images, especially after Neville or Neil get their hands on them, on the PDSs or on the IMG files, and clean them up and then make giga macros out of them. And those are some really nice, sharp images. I haven't had to dig into the database at NASA just yet, except minimally, because the images that Neil and Nev are putting up are so superior to what they're sharing with us on the NASA website. I'd rather work with those. And, there could be, Ramona, cobblestones. We see a lot of things that could be cobblestones. If any of you have seen ancient ruins and scattered cobblestones, they tend to be rounded on the top and then nice and square where they were buried in the ground. Kind of like a loaf of bread, rising out of the pan. We see an awful lot of those of different sizes. Some of them are really quite big. And let me read some of these notes here. Oh yeah, Ramona. Boy, there's some good old rocks in those creek beds. We say crick in the Midwest. But you had to be real careful if you were out camping. Never use those stones for your fire, because there's water inside, and those things will explode like a bomb when the fire heats them up and the steam pressure. And they can put a hurt on you pretty quick. That's how we got stoned in Iowa, was using those things in our campfires. Don mentions about the lair photo we showed last week and how the blocks underneath the doorway look like it could be a possible door, although it's pretty thick. Yeah, we're so conditioned here on Earth, aren't we, to see a door frame and assume there's a door that should go in it. But that's not always the case. Sometimes they're just entrances. Sometimes they're ventilation shafts. Sometimes they're a fortified entrance or the door is missing for whatever reason. I was on an archaeological team that was doing some, just to sound mysterious, classified excavation in a classified site in Israel. And we uncovered a grotto, a very special grotto, and that's all I'll say about it. But the door for that grotto was a massive stone door, and it was probably 4 feet tall, 3 feet wide, and it was probably about 8 inches thick, and the thing weighed 500 pounds easy. And it had hinge points on it, little knobs, and it fit into the bracket in the door and swing open and close just fine. Of course, it had fallen off in intervening millennia, and that very special door is at the Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas, under the care of Dr. Carl Baugh, probably one of the most profound geniuses I have ever met in my life. For some, he's a controversial figure, endorsing creation as he does. But the man has a spectacularly intricate and well-ordered mind. Just a really amazing man. Yep, crazy. Water stones are perfect. Okay, now here's something. I think a couple of people have pointed this next one out on other sites, and that's fine. But I was working off of Neil Spence's, oh golly, and I just noticed I didn't put his name on there. I feel terrible. And yeah, Don, you have a point. Maybe that door was blown off during the cataclysm. Entirely possible. That cataclysm that hit Mars was, I don't think we could even wrap our minds around. It was that bad. It was global. Anyway, take a look at this. Now this is the context view. Ian, good evening. I'm so glad you showed up, my friend. And you haven't missed too much, except do put your quarter in the can by the door. Now, here's a context view. And work on your X3D. And Ricardo, you'll let me know if you can see that green target okay. But look in the upper center, way off in the distance. This is a Percy Z-cam shot. And you can see a pyramid. Well, thank you, Renee. You know, all of us, Chris and John and Joe, Alan and Jimmy, we're all passionate about the work we do. And we do it anyway. Even if we don't have any viewers, even if we don't make any money, which none of us are, trust me. Well, maybe Chris is, I don't know. He's got such a huge fan base, and deservedly so. But, Ricardo, can you see the green target okay in the distance, upper center? I'm hoping you can. Anyway, the reason I'm showing you this is because that sucker is really far away. And so when I show you the detail view, it's going to be a little fuzzy because of the distance. And Ultra is asking, do you think Dr. Brandenburg was right about nuclear cataclysm. Absolutely. I think that it's a combination of nuclear catastrophe, planetary collisions, or close pass-bys, as postulated by Dr. Immanuel Velikovsky. And tying in with that, of course, is the, oh, God, I'm having a senior moment, the Dreyer event, 11,000 years ago, where a comet gave us a glancing blow here on Earth and melted all the ice caps. But before that, I think it passed near Mars. And anyways, a combination of those things. And we do know that the isotopes don't lie. There's xenon-129 and krypton-80 isotopes still humming away in the Martian atmosphere after all these millennia. And in particular, those two, to my understanding, only occur as a result of nuclear fusion. And yeah, there are, as you know, there are many, many anomalies in every image. And sometimes I point them out. Other times I just leave them for you guys to find. I don't want to be a hog. And I have to trim things down and focus on the main thing. So, how big is that pyramid? How far away is it? Well, here's as close as I can get without it turning into complete garbage. Now, there are a lot of interesting things in this image as well. I would say that pyramid, I would say between 50 and 75 feet tall, at least. And of course, part of it is hidden by the hill, isn't it? And you can see it kind of has an outline along the edges. And what might be possibly a door right in the center, or some kind of structure, we don't know. But as you come one hill in front of the pyramid, notice the holes. And notice that odd daisy-looking thing on the left side. And of course, in the front, we got all kinds of strange markings on that hill. So normally I don't like to go with a blurry image like this, but when it's a pyramid, I have a kind of a fondness for pyramids. Yeah, and you can't see what's in the green circle though, can you? Let me go back to that one for a minute. And here's a context view on the pyramid again. And you can see, now I can see that that's a pyramid or a triangle inside the green target. Not everybody's eyes are the same as mine. And I'd have to agree, Ian, that it's probably mechanical debris. And of course, I say things like that here on the live hang, but you'll notice I'm pretty circumspect about making outright declarations on the videos. I would rather leave it open to people's interpretation. But yeah, that pyramid is a long ways away. Okay, so I'm going to come back for just a little bit because I know how some of you starve for a really good look at my beauty. I know I wake up every day and I'm starving to get a good look at myself in the mirror, and I just makes my day. It's like the dawn, twice in one day. First the sun and then me. The daisy item is interesting, isn't it, Ramona? I have no idea what that is. I have no idea what most of this stuff is. it's real tempting to assign meanings, isn't it? It's real tempting. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. Do you know what a Shiva Lingam is? No? Some of you do. This will be on the quiz. A Shiva Lingam represents the male parts of the god Shiva in India. And it's a long oblong stone, usually set in a circle, and they build temples around them, and they pour water on it and drink offerings and that type of thing when they worship Shiva. That particular, you can tell I've been living in the Northeast. Shiva. Oh my gosh, I'm changing in front of my eyes. But that particular sect is called Kashmir Shaivism, and they have Shiva Lingams, which are everywhere in India. So when I saw this next one, to me, that's a great big Shiva Lingam lying on its side with some interesting marks on it. And I have to agree with you, Ultra. I am a very modest guy. Very, very modest. And, you know, Ian, we have so many pyramids. My gosh. At the end of every year when I do my best of, I always assemble all the pyramids that I found that year. But I must have a couple dozen pyramids at this point that I've found or that others have pointed towards me. And they're everywhere. It seems to be a standard architectural motif. And I believe it has to do with the energy grid and maybe other things as well. And Don is right. He says it's an Indian artifact. And they're in temples. And oh man, the cross-eyed explorers are in the house. Greetings, my friend. One of our beloved patrons, thank you so much. And it does look like this is done by hand, doesn't it? And I forgot to clip out the positioning dot, didn't I, on that picture right in the center. Well, at least I wasn't. I can be excused, okay? I was recovering from medication all afternoon from anesthesia, so guys cut me a little slack here. But look at the lines that are in there. Now, could that happen naturally? Yeah, I suppose so. But it sure looks like running water had its way. And why is it so symmetrical? How did that happen? And why are the lines such an equal distance apart? And what are those markings all about? I'd love to see what the rest of it is on the left side. Obviously, it was broken off, wasn't it? And Mr. 7-Digit, yep. Shiva Lingams are found throughout India in the ruins, and of course in regular temples as well. I mean, they're still prevalent today. And yes, Shiva was very venerated god in India. And I know this because years ago I practiced Kashmir Shaivism myself, spent time in India at an ashram, and spent much time meditating in a cave that had been used for 6,000 years by Siddha masters. And Ramona, yes, I was. I actually don't like feeling too groggy, but you know, I'm such a relaxed person anyway. I kind of like just feeling the way I feel normal, because I got all my stress out of the way. Oh yeah, Raymond. Yeah, Mojave Desert. And you're right. We find similar rock formations all over the Earth, especially in places where there is wind-driven sand. And so it's entirely possible that these things are a result of that. Although bear in mind, even though they have 200-mile-an-hour winds on Mars, that atmosphere is very thin. So you don't get the cutting component with the sand and the dust as you do on Earth. But nevertheless, I admit, much of this stuff could just be what are called ventifacts, artifacts formed by wind and sand. They could be nothing more than that. Except we found so many items that clearly are not ventifacts. In fact, I think I have one or two coming up here. But anyway, I don't think that this one that I called Shiva Lingam, I don't think that's natural. It's just too even and orderly and clean and regular lines and little carved, things like that. Okay, now here's one where I'm walking the fine line. Cross-eyed explorers say, contact your congressman, order NASA to come clean now. Yeah, like that's going to do any good? Those crooks rob us blind and give themselves pay raises, get absolutely nothing done. They don't listen to their constituents. But that's just me being a cynical, bitter old man, which I do very well, by the way. Besides being beautiful, I really do that extremely well, probably better than anybody I know. Okay, look at this. This one I call Dynasty. Now that to me looks an awful lot like the Egyptian busts of Ramses and his wife. You see the busts paired off like that. And if this isn't just outright pareidolia, it looks like he's wearing a crown or a headpiece of some kind. And I always find it interesting that in these types of images where they cry pareidolia, and I'm saying it myself, this could well be pareidolia, but isn't it interesting that the eyes and the nose and the mouths are always in the same place, bilaterally symmetrical? That's some really amazing erosion. Yeah, Don, some other people brought that up, that cup last week looked like it had a lid lying in front of it. Ramona, you're not a bitter old nag. I know a sweet mama when I see one. So you just knock it off. Yeah, you're right, Ricardo. 1.9 trillion. NASA, and you realize that the COVID relief on that was only 9% going to the people. And I think, what was it, 82% of that 9% is going to illegal immigrants. So, yeah, they're our friends, all right, those people in Congress. But it does look like a headdress this guy's wearing, doesn't it? And if that is a statue of his cohort on the left, the headdress is similar to that of a wife who is not a reigning pharaoh. And to answer your question, Raymond, the images themselves don't degrade. As a matter of fact, they get sharper because the mind, when it assembles the 3D image, fills in gaps that doesn't happen with a 2D picture. Now, that said, most of these anomalies are quite some distance from the camera. And so you're going to get that blurriness. And it's aggravating. And I get a lot of comments saying, why do you always show blurry pictures? What's wrong with you? Why don't you clean them up? Trust me, if you saw the original on this one, in fact, maybe I'll do that next week. I'll keep the original and show you the final result. And you'll see that it's cleared up as much as humanly possible without altering it. I never, ever alter a picture. I work with the pixels that are there. It's called pixel integrity, and it's a one unshakable guideline for any serious anomalist. And I agree, Mr. 7-Digit, that I think there was a cross-pollination, that Mars is Earth and Earth is Mars, and that we went out to the other planets and to the stars and back and forth. And I think that that's just a very common thing. There obviously have been some very advanced societies that came before us long, long ago. Ah, yes, my memory just came back. The Younger Dryas event, 11,000 years ago. Comet struck a glancing blow at the North Pole, moving southeast in a downward direction, melted the ice caps, and let me tell you, that was a planetary flood. In fact, it could possibly explain the biblical flood of Noah. So anyway, that's our dynasty. And I agree, yeah. Let's, Martin, I think they are statue faces. But, here's the thing. You can't say for sure. It's just not detailed enough, is it? If we had some nice, clean, crisp images, and good grief, they've got laser 3D mapping stuff you can buy at Home Depot and make beautiful 3D mapping of anything. You're telling me they can't put that on the rover? Or couldn't they at least drive over there and take a stereo image with their much touted 4K high-res color 3D cameras? No. Shortly, that's the short answer, is no. Here's one I like. I found this several years ago, but this came out really nice in a Giga Macro that, again, I didn't put the name on there. It's either Nev or Neil. I'm going to have to offer them my personal apologies. But I call this one a time shield. That's, of course, right in the center. There's a lot of other stuff around it, I know. I spend 3 to 5 hours on every image. I know every grain of sand in every image. And I know there are lots of other things. But I focus on the main one. So look at that. It's got those kind of gear teeth at the bottom. It's got bilateral symmetry. It's got some teeth going up the left side. It's got that squared off top. 90-degree angle on one side, broken off on the left. And it appears to have glyphs or carvings along the right edge. Okay, riddle me this, Batman. The wind and sand do that? That's crazy. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Graham Hancock. Though he does get a little dry occasionally, but his stuff is well researched, and he's a very thoughtful author. And David Childress as well. And interesting about him, on Ancient Aliens, or if you watch him on any other shows, he kind of comes across as kind of goony, but he's an excellent writer. His books are very, very good reading. And I agree, Ramona. We were very advanced. We had very advanced cultures back in the day. I'll come back to that after a while. And we know from the Mahabharata and the Ramayana and Bhagavad Gita and some of these other ancient Vedic scriptures that the Vimana were actual technology back in the day, along with nuclear weapons and missiles. Sorry to say. And what is it? Mohenjo-daro in India. They dug up skeletons there that are between 8 and 10,000 years old that are still so highly radioactive that they're dangerous to be around for very long. So what does that tell you? Well, you know, Raymond, NASA's carrying on about the search for microbial life. Well, to use a very technical term, many of you may not understand this, but for NASA, I say bite me. Microbial life, bite me. We found microbial life back in Viking days. Clear indications. Clear indications. Experiment worked just fine. And there's microbial life there now. But there's also other life, I believe, though most of it is moved underground. And Tony, welcome aboard. Well, man, I know you got to work. That's okay. Now, if you're late coming to the hang, and it's because of work, you don't need to put a quarter in the jar. But you do have to polish everyone's shoes before you leave. I love that antique telescope over there. I got my little laboratory set up in back there. And I'm a big fan of candlelight, as you can tell. And yeah, it's infuriating about NASA, isn't it? But, you know, we'll work with what we've got, do the best we can with what we got. And eventually one day, calmer and more rational heads will prevail. And we'll start getting some really good stuff. As it is now, I really believe that there are some insiders at NASA, JPL, Caltech, who are purposely letting things slide by as part of a slow disclosure. Let me show you the time shield again while I catch up on some of these. Yeah, that was Ricardo. That was Oppenheim's great quote from the Bhagavad Gita, and I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. Yeah, and that site's in Pakistan. Yeah, I got that wrong. But it's very clear evidence of nuclear warfare. I agree with that. Yeah, I've had a couple of images. In fact, there's one coming up soon. Ricardo talks about fossilized crinoids, and I have several images of those which are really hard to refute. They really and truly do look like fossil crinoids. But there's one coming up here that I'll show you that really looks like that. And yeah, I agree. AC Stinnett. That does look like carving on there, doesn't it? And yeah, Ramona, the buildings. There was a great deal of expertise in stonemasonry, which we saw not only in ancient cultures, but we see all over Mars. We see remarkable things done in stone. Just like the megalithic walls of Sacsayhuaman and Pumapunku. They had a control of stone that we have not figured out yet. And they could lift those suckers too, couldn't they? Good. Thank you, Raymond. I'm glad you can hear me okay. And I like this studio. It's real comfy. It's really me, I think. Okay, let's look at something else. Terry Burnett. By the way, all these images going up in this week's video, I found them all except for this one. This is one of Terry Burnett's. And this is a box. He and I actually found it at the same time several years ago, but I'm happy to give him the credit. Terry's a great researcher, very consistent. And I have a really good close-up of this that I'm not going to show you. You have to watch the video to see the close-up. But if you go into your X3D mode, and you can see those balls or spheres along the front edge of that box. And in the close-up, you can see all those little deals on top of the box. And maybe what's not so clear here is you see that perfectly rectangular piece underneath the box. Well, it's got a top edge that goes back. A little bit hard to see. There's perfectly straight lines. That's at least the part we can see is a perfect rectangular slab. And Ramona, I think they did have some advance warning on Mars. I think the elites fled to Earth, maybe more than once. But it's interesting to me that Cairo in Coptic, the Egyptian language, means place of Mars or city of Mars. So that's a rather strange coincidence, don't you think? Oh yeah, I bet you find some beautiful crinoids out there. We also had them in the Midwest. They were all over the place in the rocks. And I don't know what happened to mine. I had a whole bunch of them. Yeah, and Mr. Seven Digit, of course, you know about the vitrified forts in Scotland and elsewhere around the world where the surface of the stone has actually been melted into glass. And that's pretty hard to argue with. And they've tried to replicate that by building fires, stone walls interlaced with big logs and building super hot fires. And they do get a little patchwork melting here and there, but vitrifying an entire fort? That's some serious heat, isn't it? And yeah, our ancestors were a little trigger happy, as we are. And, our technology is advancing quicker than we can handle it, I believe. Yeah, Ramona, I think you're right. I think there's life on Mars still. It's going to be smaller stuff, possibly. Okay, here's kind of a blurry one. And I don't know, Tony, whether there was us that devastated Mars. To tell you the truth, I just don't know. One thing is clear from Dr. Brandenburg's research is that the nuclear blasts were set off in the upper atmosphere, that the attack came from space. And the devices used were absolutely huge, the largest being the size of the Empire State Building. And there were 3 of them. So it might have been an attack from the planet that at one time was between Mars and Jupiter. I think some people call it Tiamat. But take a look at this. This is a kind of a carved pillar just lying there. And I don't know if you can see it on your screens, but on the left end there's some raised carvings, one of which appears to be golden in color. Now, is that an artifact from the photograph itself? I don't know. And you can't argue with that, Ultra. He's saying, yeah, we've actually been through, I think, 4 or 5 complete extinction level events, some of which were natural, some of which were man caused. And my understanding, such as it is that the 2 biggest hurdles for any civilization to overcome is nuclear, of course, and then AI global internet, surviving AI internet on a global scale, where it becomes self-aware and you have that Skynet scenario that was depicted in the Terminator movies. But it's a good point, Martin. Most life forms on Earth are clearly visible on Mars. If you can't see, just do the research. Yeah, I think they're there. We've seen what look like flocks of birds and swarms of insects. Okay, Lee, welcome aboard. Glad you can make it, my friend. As I explained a little while ago, if you're getting here late because of work, you don't have to put a quarter in the can by the door. Well, that could be a lightsaber hilt, Don, but that's pretty long. I'd say that's 5 feet long at least. And Ramona, you're right. Disclosure is taking place. It started in 2017. And we're seeing more and more things being revealed. My favorite thing recently was the plans for the TR-3B. The patents were declassified. And as I mentioned last week, by the time they show you formally classified plans for an anti-gravity craft, you can believe they've had stuff that's way in advance of that. Way in advance of that. And Raymond, no, I don't have any particular gut feelings. I think that we find debris fields everywhere the rovers have gone. We've also found areas that were almost entirely devoid of artifacts of any kind. So I think the debris fields are going to be nearer to the cities. And I think that Jezero Crater is smack dab in the middle. It only makes sense. See, that used to be a lake, an inland sea, back in the day. Well, what do? We always build near water, don't we? We have beautiful cities and resort towns and luxury homes and canals and waterways. And yeah, you betcha, there are going to be a ton of artifacts there. And I think the crater rim, Raymond, pre-existed. I think that was a very ancient crater, and that the water had filled it back in the day when it was a water planet. And just like the Yucatan Peninsula and the Gulf of Mexico are basically craters that have been filled with water. And, who knows? I'm speculating. I have nothing to base this on other than just thinking about it. And yes, I agree, Darren. It's wonderful to see so many of you here in the chat room tonight. I'm honored by your presence. Look at this. Now, I call this a locking tab. This thing is big. It's probably 4 to 6 feet from the back to the front. Massively heavy. But you can clearly see this is carved. It's got those arrow straight lines carved into a notch carved into it. And where I've seen that before, that shape, excuse me, is in locking tabs. You slide it over a piece that corresponds to that cutout. And of course the slanted lines lock it in place. You slide it down and snug it, and that's locked in place. Tony has an interesting question. Why does the United States seem to be the epicenter? Well, a couple of reasons. One, we have the highest standard of living of most any other country. I think there's some that have pretty close. But, even our poorest people have cell phones. And so people are they can take pictures and videos. They see anything strange, they point a camera at it. They want to get that viral surge and make some money and have their 15 minutes of fame. Nothing wrong with that. But that said, it can easily be argued that Peru and South America have far more public sightings than we do, where masses of people see them. Same can be said of Russia. Same can be said of Asia, South Vietnam, North Vietnam. I mean, there's stuff popping all over the world, and we're, of course, America-centric. We are exposed basically to whatever happens here in America. And so we get the impression that stuff isn't happening elsewhere, but it is. It really is. Okay, now, remember we were talking about crinoids a little bit earlier. And yeah, Raymond, that locking tab does resemble a type of keystone used in ancient arches. It really does. Okay, take a look at this one. That just for fun, call it banana split. Because it looks like a banana peel, doesn't it? Draped over that rock. But that rock, you can see that it's an even arch, parallel sides, notch cut out of the bottom, see it? It's got legs to it. It's got carving on the face that's hard to discern, and it has carving on the side. Look between the banana peels. You can see carving there. So that in and of itself is very strange. But that thing on top, what is that? Was that a decorative element? Is it a gigantic fossil of a gigantic crinoid? Because it kind of looks like a crinoid. Oh, and there was something I wanted to point out in Terry's box. I don't know if it's in this close-up or not. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. Now, in the close-up, you can't see it quite as well here. But just below the box in the center is a T-bar piece. And when you see that up close, it's all evenly segmented off. It looks like a tool. And it's got that perfect little handle at the top, that T-bar. So I'm curious how something like that might erode. I mean, while it was eroding on the main part of it and making all those segmented circles, why didn't those little thin arms of the T-bar wear away? How did they remain? So I don't think that's natural. In fact, this whole Murray Buttes is loaded with very, very strange stuff. Okay, so we're coming down to the wire here. I like to keep the live hangs down to hour and 15 or so. And I'd rather leave you wanting more than get you too sated with my presence. Although who could get tired of my face? I mean, really, seriously. I mean, you are so lucky just to look at me. And yeah, Don, that one T-bar looks like an auger, doesn't it? Okay, we're going to do a quick run through the things we've looked at that'll be in the video this Friday. This is that first one that has that beautifully arched little architectural element there in the lower left. And then that perfect nose cone in the upper center. Wow. Oh, thank you, Lee. Yeah, if you guys don't mind, if you happen to think about clicking a thumbs up before you leave, I sure appreciate it. And let's Facebook, lets YouTube know that I'm alive and to quit shadow banning me. Hi, Granny. 43 Pigtail. I'm glad you made it. Drop that quarter in the can by the door. And thank you, Ramona. That's very kind of you. I love my work too, in all seriousness. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. And the fact that other people seem to benefit from it and enjoy it is absolutely amazing to me. Thank you very much. Okay, and so there's that one. And then we had that square opening, about 2 or 3 feet across. Is that a tunnel going in underground, or is it a device of some kind? I don't know. I just don't know. Then we had our pyramid. Now this is the context view. And you look left of center, way in back inside the green target. You're welcome, Raymond. Thanks, Tony, for stopping by. Glad you stayed up late for us here. And yeah, Marcahuasi in Peru, Mr. 7-Digit, that's a must-see. That's an amazing place. And Martin, I don't know that they're stupid, but they have an agenda, just like everything else does. It's a managed agenda. So there's the pyramid way off in the distance. And here's the close-up on it. And it's blurry, but it does give you an idea that that's just not a mound of dirt. How many mounds of dirt have you ever seen arrange themselves with perfectly straight lines like that? I'm waiting. Then we went to the Shiva Lingam. That's a big piece. Look how smooth and symmetrical it is with those lines around the center from right to left. And those carvings, I don't have any idea what those notches are carved in it for. Yeah, of course that could be a natural formation. I know. I'm not going to argue with you. Then we went on over to our dynasty, to what looked to me to be 2 Egyptian colossi staring up out of the sand. And that, that white stone behind it really looks like it might be part of a temple that maybe they were attached to. Or it could be pareidolia. And yeah, Martin, I know they act stupid. Can't fix stupid. Then we went on over to our time shield there with all its notches and carvings along the edge. Look like Greek letters, don't they? And that squared off top with a circle carved in the center. Yeah, that's natural erosion, isn't it? You betcha. Then we stopped by Terry's box, Terry Burnett, with that T-bar down below it. That beautiful square platform it's sitting on. Boy, if that doesn't look man-made to you, or person-made, or intelligent-made to you, I don't know what does. I mean, how much more perfect can those lines and angles be? Then here's that pillar we had a look at. Full of carving, round, but really battered. In fact, that entire debris field is just, I mean, you can look through it. You can see just in this image too, all kinds of anomalies, circles and lines and carvings and strange stuff. But I picked this one out as being perhaps the most clear of kind of a blurry picture. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these things were petrified wood. I like the little gold carving on the left side of this pillar, if that's what it is. And then we had our locking tab. Look how that's shaped to slide down onto a piece and lock into place. 4 90-degree angles on the end. Actually make that 5, 6 90-degree angles on the end piece. And back to our final image, the banana split. That thing is probably stand, all told, everything together, probably about 6 feet tall. And let me explain real quick why they're playing stupid and why they're not sharing things with us. Well, there are a lot of reasons. But the main reason is that we have all this technology already, folks. Star Trek stuff, transporters, replicators, jump rooms, warp drive, zero-point energy, anti-gravity. We've got all that. But if it were revealed all at once, or when it is revealed, every one of those are elite ruling overlords. The mass populace will want to try them for crimes against humanity. Can you imagine? I mean, can you really imagine having all of this technology, a means to eliminate hunger, to give perfect health to everybody, to provide as much food or water as anybody needs, to travel anywhere, to educate anybody to any level that they wish to be educated? That's truly is a crime against humanity. And I'm so glad all you guys came by tonight. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for spending a little time with me. It seems to grow every week, doesn't it? Some really good questions and comments. I really feel like you guys are special. First of all, you've learned how to view X3D. That puts you in 1/100th of, maybe 1,000th of 1% of the entire population on Earth, maybe less. There are quite a few very technical people in design, engineering, science, medicine who do X3D on a regular basis because it's part of their job. But the fact that you've chosen to learn this and employ it with my my work, sharing with you, that's amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. I've noticed also, yeah, and Lee, it is about money, isn't it? Always will be until we get rid of the Babylon money magic system. And yeah, Mr. 7-Digit, it is all rediscovered technology. It's a process of remembering. And Boysenberry Dracula, good to see you. I knew you were lurking in the wings somewhere. So anyway, that's what's happening here. As we get a little closer to the summer, I'm not entirely sure what my schedule is going to be. I may have to cut it back to one video a month, one hang a month. I don't know. I just don't know at this point. I want to try to keep doing it. And you're welcome, Ricardo, and thank you for your help with the colors. I really appreciate that. And, well, I think people do, Boysenberry, I think they do care about the UFO releases. But you got to understand, most people are lazy. Are they going to read through 1,300 pages of material? No, I probably won't. Not because I'm not interested. I just don't have the time. And my major interest is this. This is where I focus all my time and energy, is finding 3D anomalies. So Don, thanks for stopping by, one and all. And by golly, I'm just going to have to sign it off now. So this is your buddy Dave over at MarsX3D. Be well.